When 8-year-old Maya stumbled through the front door that afternoon, her father Marcus thought he was seeing a ghost. Her scalp was raw, clumps of hair hung in uneven patches, tears had carved clean lines through the dirt on her face. She couldn't speak, just collapsed into his arms, shaking. Marcus was a 30-year member of the Iron Warriors MC. He'd seen violence, cruelty, combat zones most people only see in nightmares. But nothing prepared him for what had been done to his little girl. Within 24 hours, over 300 bikers would descend on this small Minnesota town. And what happened next? No one saw coming. If you believe that protecting children matters more than protecting reputations, that adults who ignore cruelty should face consequences, and that sometimes the people society fears are exactly the protectors we need, stay with this story. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and prepare to see what happens when a brotherhood refuses to let injustice hide. The afternoon, everything broke. The house was quiet that late afternoon, the kind of stillness where even air feels heavy. Then the front door slammed open hard enough to rattle picture frames. Marcus looked up confused. Maya never entered like that. She was gentle in even her smallest habits. But the sound was wrong. Too sharp. Too desperate. A sound pulled from fear. She stood in the doorway, breathing in short, broken bursts. Light behind her poured across her hair, what was left of it, catching on uneven patches, torn clumps, raw humiliation carved into her small silhouette. For a moment, Marcus couldn't process what he was seeing. His mind refused it, as if reality might rearrange itself if he blinked hard enough. Have you ever seen someone you love completely shattered? Ever felt that moment when your heart breaks and rage ignites simultaneously? Comment "Protect Maya" if you understand what Marcus felt, because what comes next proves that sometimes justice doesn't come from systems. It comes from people who refuse to look away. Maya didn't speak. She didn't have to. The ruin of her hair told the story before words could form. Marcus's breath stuttered. His hands rose halfway, then hesitated, trembling, as if touching her would make the truth more real. When he finally reached her, he did it slowly, with the tenderness of someone handling something shattered. Maya stepped into him, small and shaking, and he folded his arms around her without words. Language is too clumsy for moments like this. His fingertips brushed the uneven stubble along her head, tufts where hair had been ripped rather than cut. She flinched, not at the touch, but at the memory. Marcus felt that flinch run through his own body. He pulled back just enough to look at her. Tear tracks streaked her face, eyes red and swollen, voice muted by shock. In that fragile face, he saw everything at once: fear, humiliation, the instinct to apologize for something she should never have endured. What Marcus didn't know yet, what he would discover in the next few hours, was that this wasn't random cruelty. This was the final act in an 8-month campaign of torment that adults had witnessed and chosen to ignore. It wasn't just today. For a long time, neither spoke. Maya kept her head down, staring at the floor, breath catching every few seconds. Marcus knelt to meet her eyes, but she wouldn't look at him. That alone told him how deep this went. He softened his voice. "Maya, sweetheart, what happened?" And Maya whispered the first piece. It wasn't just today. The words came slowly. She told him about 3 boys, all 11 years old, all from wealthy families, all emboldened by the knowledge that rules didn't apply to them. She told him how it started with mocking during art class, whispers behind her back in hallways, how they laughed at her drawings, called her strange, weak, the girl who cried too easily. She described escalation. Her sketchbook going missing, only to reappear torn. Pencils snapped in half. Backpack dumped out behind the cafeteria. Shoves. Tripping. Books knocked from her arms just to watch her scramble. Then she said something worse. Adults had seen it. Teachers, aides, staff who stood in hallways as though supervision meant occupying space, not protecting children. When Maya tried telling them, they dismissed her. One teacher in particular kept repeating the same phrase: "You're too sensitive," as though cruelty was her fault, as though an 8-year-old girl grieving her mother, who died 2 years earlier, should have been tougher, quieter, more convenient. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. Maya was finally talking. He wouldn't interrupt now. She explained how the bullies grew bolder each month, certain no one would stop them. And they were right. Not once. Each complaint was waved away. Each tear met with a shrug. Each small humiliation swallowed because Maya believed, in that way only children can, that maybe the grown-ups were right. Maybe she was the problem. The pattern became clear. This wasn't chaos. This was targeted, sustained, enabled. Behind those boys stood families with money. Major donors whose names were spoken in staff meetings with reverence. Their money had built new classrooms, renovated athletic fields, padded budgets. The administration had grown dependent on them. And when dependence turns to fear, accountability dies. Every complaint about those boys was quietly filed away. Every incident softened until it sounded harmless. Every time Maya found courage to speak, her words drowned beneath the weight of who the bullies' parents were. Maya wasn't the problem. She'd never been the problem. She was a quiet girl with a sketchbook trying to navigate a world that had already taken so much. And the people meant to protect her had chosen the comfort of wealthy adults over the safety of a vulnerable child. The day everything ended. Maya described that afternoon carefully, each detail coaxed from a place she didn't want to revisit. Dismissal bell rang. Students spilled out. Maya waited for the crowd to thin. She always did. When she thought the boys had left, she started toward the pickup area, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. But as she passed the gym's corner, footsteps closed behind her. 3 sets. Too close. She froze without turning. She knew. The boys stepped in front, cutting off her path. She tried to move sideways. They shifted with her. Didn't speak at first. Didn't need to. Their smirks said they planned this. She tried to run. One grabbed her wrist. Another blocked escape. The third pushed her backward until her shoulders hit the rough gym wall. The tallest boy reached into his backpack. Maya didn't understand at first. The object looked wrong in a child's hands. Then she heard the click, the hum, the low mechanical buzz growing louder. An electric razor. Maya's breath fractured. She shook her head, begging without words. But they didn't hesitate. They grabbed her arms, pinning her against the wall. The razor touched her head, and she screamed. They laughed. The more she struggled, the harder they held her. Clumps of hair fell to concrete, dark against gray. She cried so hard she could barely breathe, twisting, trying to escape. But they were older, stronger, energized by her terror. Then came the worst part. One pulled out a phone. The lens caught her tears, her shaking, her humiliation in trembling close-up. Her voice cracked, raw from crying. She called for help, but after-school hours meant empty hallways, empty fields, empty windows. No one came. No one heard her. The buzzing stopped only when the oldest boy grew bored. They stepped back, letting her collapse to her knees. She tried gathering fallen hair, hands shaking as though she could somehow undo what they'd done. The boys laughed again, satisfied. And before running off, they made sure the camera was still recording. 3 11-year-old boys held down an 8-year-old girl who'd lost her mother 2 years earlier, shaved her head in uneven patches while she screamed, and filmed the entire thing for fun. When a father makes a choice. Maya fell asleep against Marcus's chest, exhaustion claiming her in small shivers. He laid her gently on the couch, tucked a blanket around her shoulders, and stepped into the kitchen. His hands shook as he reached for his phone, but his voice when he spoke was steady. He dialed the number he'd only used in moments that mattered. The call rang twice. Then a familiar voice, "Talk to me, brother." Marcus swallowed hard. "It's Maya." Pause. Long one. Then quietly, "What happened?" Marcus told him. Not every detail, but enough. Enough for the man on the other end to understand. Silence filled the space again, heavier than before. "We're handling this," the chapter president said. "You're not alone." Within minutes, the message spread. First through his chapter, then neighboring ones. Phones rang in garages, living rooms, truck stops, midnight diners. Men who'd never met Maya heard what had been done and didn't hesitate. Calls traveled county to county, then state to state. By midnight, Diesel had word from over a dozen chapters. Brothers from 3 states were already packing bikes, checking headlights, tightening bolts. They didn't ask for justification. They didn't ask whether the boys were punished yet. They cared about Maya. They cared that a little girl had been brutalized while adults looked away. And by sunrise, the largest gathering of Iron Warriors this town had ever seen would arrive at the school's gates. Not for revenge, for accountability. Dawn of the 300. The sound came long before anyone saw them. A low vibration humming through early morning air, growing until windows trembled. Parents sipping coffee looked up confused. Teachers arriving early paused with keys in hand. Then the first headlights appeared. One, then a cluster, then a line so long it blurred into morning haze. Row after row of motorcycles crested the rise, riders in formation, convoys stretching farther than anyone in that town had ever seen. It wasn't chaos. It was a procession, disciplined, deliberate, unstoppable. By 6:45, they arrived at Riverside Elementary. They didn't surround it, didn't block entrances. They parked in the overflow lot across the street, engines dying until only silence remained. 300 bikers stood there, not moving, not shouting, simply present. Inside, Principal Karen Walsh saw them through her window and called police. There's a gang outside, hundreds of them. Sheriff James Tucker arrived expecting confrontation. Instead, order. Quiet. Not a single weapon. Not a single law being broken. The chapter president walked forward, hands visible. Sheriff Tucker, my name is David Martinez. We're here for the school board meeting this afternoon. Until then, we'll wait peacefully to ensure children's safety, particularly one child, Maya Collins. You planning trouble? No, sir. But we're planning on shining light on the trouble that's already here. When Maya walked through those doors, Maya woke to unusual silence. Found Marcus already dressed, waiting. Daddy, aren't you going to work? Not today, sweetheart. Today I'm taking you to school myself. On the drive, she saw them, motorcycles, riders, a silent wall of protection. Those are my brothers and sisters, Marcus said. They're here to make sure you're safe. As they walked toward doors, each rider straightened in quiet respect. Some nodded. Others pressed hands to hearts. A woman named Rosa stepped forward, knelt to Maya's level, smiled gently. You must be Maya. I'm Rosa. I'm a nurse, and I want you to know something. You're brave. What you've been through would break most grown-ups. That makes you one of us. She placed a small pin in Maya's hand, a guardian angel with tiny wings. Wear this today. Whenever you're scared, remember you've got 300 people out here who've got your back. Maya pinned it to her sweater. When she walked into school, her shoulders were no longer curled inward. The evidence that ended everything. While bikers stood watch, 3 Iron Warriors members with law degrees combed through public records. What they found was bigger than one protected bully. The school board had been systematically dismissing complaints involving donor children while leaving vulnerable kids exposed. 14 incident reports dismissed. 2 teachers terminated for reporting. Complaints deleted from digital logs. This wasn't negligence. It was orchestration. By 3 p.m., news stations arrived. The chapter's media liaison handed reporters meticulously organized packets, documented complaints, sealed files, statements from silenced teachers, accounts from frightened children finally brave enough to speak. By 5 o'clock news, headlines changed. This wasn't about a biker gang. This was about a decade of systematic bullying, cover-ups, and abuse of power finally exposed. Justice without violence. The school board convened emergency session. Marcus didn't sit. He stood near the door, not imposing, but anchoring the space with presence that made excuses impossible. The 2 boys who orchestrated the assault, immediate expulsion. Their academic records would reflect the severity. For the first time, money hadn't shielded them. The 3rd boy, long-term suspension with mandatory counseling. His parents didn't fight it. There was grief in their eyes, but also relief. The teacher who'd kept months of documented incidents but acted on nothing, suspended. Her teaching license under review. The principal who'd buried 3 formal complaints, administrative leave. Formal investigation launched. No promise of reinstatement. The wealthy parents' donations returned. Every dollar. Their privileged access revoked. Civil lawsuits being drafted. And then one of the fathers broke. Right there in that office, reputation cracking, he began to sob. Not performative crying, but raw collapse of a man carrying truth he'd never wanted to face. His son had shown troubling behaviors for years. Instead of getting help, he'd thrown money at the problem. His voice shook. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." It didn't erase what happened, but it revealed something important. Systems don't break on their own. People break them. What came after? The bikers stayed. What began as solidarity evolved into something the school had never seen. Anti-bullying workshops. Real conversations about consequence and respect. An escort program for vulnerable kids. A direct hotline bypassing bureaucracy. For the rest of the school year, an Iron Warrior was always in the parking lot during pickup and drop-off. Rain or shine, someone was there, not hovering, just present. A quiet promise that what happened to Maya would never happen again. The teacher who dismissed Maya's cries? Terminated. License revoked permanently. Even in her final statement, she insisted she'd done nothing wrong. Called Maya too sensitive. Some people never learn, but at least she'd never stand in front of another classroom. Healing doesn't announce itself. For Maya, recovery was fragile. She flinched at loud sounds. Nightmares came often enough that Marcus kept a lamp on in her room. Then a turning point. A Hell's Angel's wife sat with Maya, shared her own story of being bullied, told Maya the truth no one had told her. None of it had been her fault. Small victories followed. One morning, Maya opened her sketchbook. Next day, she made a single mark. By week's end, she was sketching boldly. One evening, Maya laughed, real bright, the kind that belonged to a child remembering joy. Marcus froze, afraid to break the moment. It was proof she was coming back. 2 years earlier, Maya had lost her mother. In the aftermath, she'd learned the world could be cruel. But now she was learning something else. The world also contained people who drive through the night and show up 300 strong just to make sure one little girl knew she mattered. Her hair grew back, at first just fuzz, then soft strands, then fuller patches. She brushed it with careful tenderness each morning, as though each stroke rewrote what had been taken. Her hair wasn't just hair anymore. Every strand was a declaration. Survival, strength, a little girl who'd been hurt but refused to stay broken. One Sunday evening, Maya climbed into Marcus's lap like she used to when the world was simpler. She wrapped arms around his neck, settling against his chest. Neither spoke. Silence, true silence, can heal when shared between two people who've survived something together. Then, in the softest voice, a whisper, "Dad, I'm happy again." Marcus froze, not from shock, but from something deeper, like a dam breaking. His breath caught, arms tightened around her, throat closing with emotion so fierce he couldn't speak. For months, he'd carried her pain, fought for her, watched her struggle, hoped desperately she'd someday feel whole again. And now here she was, offering him the 4 words he'd prayed for without ever saying them aloud. "Dad, I'm happy again." He couldn't answer. His voice was gone, chest tight with overwhelming relief and love. He held his daughter closer, burying his face in her hair. Those 4 words were the culmination of every long day, every meeting, every hard conversation, every protective gesture, every mile ridden by 300 men who believed a child deserved safety. That was the victory, not the expulsions or policies or consequences. This moment, her happiness, the message that matters. Every single one of us has the ability to be someone's protection. We can notice the quiet kid. We can ask the second question. We can speak up instead of looking away. We can listen, pay attention, refuse to stay silent. Harper got her justice because people chose to stand up. Imagine what could happen if we all did. If this story moved you, do 3 things. Subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment, "I stand with Maya," to show that protecting children matters more than protecting reputations. 1 like, 1 comment, 1 share. That's you saying you stand against cruelty and for children who can't stand for themselves. Be the person who pays attention. Be the one who refuses silence. Be the protector someone desperately needs. Because that's how the world changes. Not with grand gestures, but with ordinary people refusing to look away.